May 9, 1941, 12:35 hours, North Atlantic, 300 miles west of Ireland. Sub-Lieutenant David Baum stood on the deck of HMS Bulldog, staring at something that shouldn't exist. A German U-boat, wallowing on the surface, apparently abandoned, with its crew swimming away in the freezing Atlantic water. U-110 was supposed to be sinking. The depth charges from Bulldog and HMS Aubriechia should have sent it to the bottom minutes ago. German submarine protocol was absolute. If capture is imminent, destroy the Enigma machine, burn the codebooks, open the scuttling valves, abandon ship. In that order, always. But U-110 wasn't sinking. It was floating, listing slightly to starboard. Hatches open. No one aboard. And somewhere inside that steel hull, if the Germans had made even one mistake in their panic, was the most valuable intelligence prize of the entire war. Baum was 20 years old. He had never been inside a submarine. He had never seen an Enigma machine. He had no idea what it looked like or where it would be stored. But he had orders from Commander Joe Baker Creswell, orders that would determine whether thousands of Allied ships lived or died in the coming months. Board her, find anything that looks important, bring it back. Within the next 40 minutes, Baum and his boarding party would execute the greatest intelligence heist in military history. They would steal technology that Nazi Germany believed was mathematically unbreakable. They would capture documents that would allow Bletchley Park to read German naval communications for months, and they would do it all while the U-boat could sink beneath them at any moment, trapping them inside. The Germans, swimming in the water, believed their submarine was doomed, their secrets safe. Their commander, Julius Lemp, one of the most experienced U-boat captains in the Kriegsmarine, was confident he had followed protocol perfectly. He was wrong, and his mistake would help change the outcome of the Battle of the Atlantic, shorten the war by years, and save hundreds of thousands of lives. This is the story of the submarine that didn't sink when it should have, the boarding party that risked everything for a machine they'd never seen, and the deception that convinced Germany their codes were still secure, even as British codebreakers were reading every message. The greatest heist of World War II happened on a sinking submarine in the middle of the Atlantic, and the Germans never knew. To understand why Baum's boarding of U-110 was so critical, you must first understand the problem that was killing Allied sailors by the thousands in 1941. The Battle of the Atlantic. By May 1941, Germany was winning the Battle of the Atlantic decisively. U-boats were sinking Allied merchant ships faster than they could be built. March 1941, 41 ships sunk, 243,000 tons. April 1941, 43 ships sunk, 249,000 tons. May 1941, 58 ships sunk, 325,000 tons. At this rate, Britain would starve. The island nation depended entirely on convoys from America for food, fuel, weapons, everything. If the convoys couldn't get through, Britain would be forced to surrender within months, and the U-boats seemed to know exactly where every convoy was. The Enigma machine. The reason was Enigma, a German encryption machine that scrambled messages into seemingly random letter sequences. The Germans believed it was unbreakable, and mathematically, they were almost right. How Enigma worked. The machine looked like a typewriter in a wooden box, but when you pressed a key, electrical signals passed through a series of rotating wheels, rotors, and a plug board, scrambling the letter through billions of possible combinations. The mathematics were staggering. 3 rotors, chosen from 5 available, 60 possible arrangements. Each rotor had 26 positions, 17 quintillion 576 combinations. Plug board connections, 10 pairs, 150 quintillion 738 billion 274 million 937,250 combinations. Total possible settings, 158 quintillion 962 quintillion 555 billion 217 million 826,000 360,000. That's 158 quintillion possible combinations. Even if you could test 1 million settings per second, it would take 5,000 years to try them all. The German High Command was confident. Enigma was mathematically unbreakable. Even if Britain captured a machine without knowing the daily settings, it was useless. The Bletchley Park problem. British intelligence had captured Enigma machines before, from the Polish resistance, from captured German positions. Brilliant mathematicians at Bletchley Park, including Alan Turing, had built bombs, electromechanical computers designed to test thousands of rotor settings per second. But they had a critical limitation. The bombs needed a crib, a known piece of plain text that appeared in the encrypted message. And even with a crib, the bombs could only work if they had recent codebooks showing daily rotor order, which 3 rotors to use, starting positions for each rotor, plug board settings. Without current codebooks, Bletchley Park was working blind. They could break individual messages after days of work, but by then, the intelligence was useless. Convoys had already sailed and been sunk. The naval Enigma problem. The German Navy used a more complex version, Enigma M3, with additional features. Different rotor wirings than the Army version. More complex key-setting procedures. Indicators changed more frequently. Different codebooks. By early 1941, Bletchley Park could sometimes read German Army and Air Force messages, but naval Enigma remained largely impenetrable, and the Navy was what mattered. U-boats were coordinated through encrypted radio messages. Convoy positions radioed from reconnaissance aircraft. U-boat Wolfpack coordinates sent from headquarters. Attack orders broadcast to multiple submarines simultaneously. If Bletchley Park could read naval Enigma, they could route convoys away from known U-boat positions, locate and attack U-boat supply submarines, predict Wolfpack formations before they struck, read operational plans and patrol areas. The war in the Atlantic would shift from defense to offense. But they needed current naval Enigma materials, codebooks, rotor settings, operational documents, and they needed them without the Germans knowing they'd been captured. The capture problem. Here was the strategic dilemma. Britain couldn't just capture naval Enigma materials and start reading messages immediately. If sinkings suddenly decreased, German intelligence would realize their codes were compromised. They would change the entire Enigma system, and Bletchley Park would be back to zero. The Admiralty needed a capture that looked like a sinking. They needed Enigma materials from a submarine that the Germans believed was destroyed with all hands, its secrets on the bottom of the ocean. They needed U-110. HMS Bulldog was a B-class destroyer, commissioned in 1930, armed with 4 4.7-inch guns and depth-charge racks. She was part of the 3rd Escort Group protecting convoy OB-318-236 merchant ships crossing the Atlantic from Liverpool to Halifax. The destroyer's captain was Commander A.J. Joe Baker Creswell, age 38, a career Royal Navy officer with a reputation for aggressive anti-submarine tactics. He had a theory that destroyers were dropping depth charges too shallow. U-boats were diving deeper than British doctrine assumed. Baker Creswell had modified Bulldog's depth charge settings to detonate deeper, 300 to 500 feet, instead of the standard 150 to 250 feet. It made him unpopular with the Admiralty, unauthorized modifications, but his kill rate was higher than average. Protecting OB-318 were HMS Bulldog, Baker Creswell, destroyer; HMS Aubriechia, Lieutenant Commander Fogg, corvette; HMS Broadway, Lieutenant Commander Taylor, destroyer. 3 escorts for 36 merchant ships was standard for 1941, barely adequate, but Britain didn't have enough destroyers to provide better protection. May 9, 1941. Morning. The convoy was 5 days out from Liverpool, making 7 knots, slow speed for the slowest merchant ship, zigzagging to make torpedo solutions harder. Weather was typical North Atlantic spring, cold, overcast, rough seas. At 11 o'clock, Bulldog's ASDIC sonar operator reported a contact. Submarine, bearing 210 degrees, range 1,400 yards. Baker Creswell immediately ordered action stations and increased speed to attack. Broadway and Aubriechia converged on the contact. The attack. 11:15. Bulldog reached the ASDIC contact position and dropped a pattern of 8 depth charges set for 350 and 500 feet. 11:17. Broadway dropped another pattern. 11:18. Massive underwater explosions. Oil and debris surfaced. 11:20. ASDIC contact lost. Standard procedures suggested the U-boat was destroyed or severely damaged and sinking. Baker Creswell ordered the escorts to continue searching while the convoy proceeded on course. 11:25. The impossible sight. A lookout on Bulldog shouted, "Submarine surfacing, bearing 200." U-110 broke the surface 700 yards away, bow first, conning tower appearing, water streaming off its deck. The submarine rolled to starboard, stabilized, floating but clearly damaged. Baker Creswell's first instinct was to ram and sink it, standard procedure. But something made him hesitate. The U-boat's deck hatches were opening. Crew members were emerging, jumping into the water. They weren't fighting, they were abandoning ship. And the submarine wasn't sinking, it was floating. The decision. Baker Creswell made a split-second decision that would change the war. Instead of sinking U-110, he would try to capture it. "Prepare boarding party. Sub-Lieutenant Baum, select your men. You're going aboard." This violated every protocol. U-boats carried scuttling charges. The Germans would have opened the sea valves. The submarine could sink at any moment, drowning anyone inside. But if there was even a chance of capturing Enigma materials, go, now, before she sinks. The commander of U-110 was Kapitan Lieutenant Fritz Julius Lemp, age 27, one of the Kriegsmarine's most experienced and decorated U-boat commanders. Lemp was already notorious for firing the first shots of the war. On September 3, 1939, just hours after Britain declared war, Lemp commanded U-30 and torpedoed the passenger liner Athenia, killing 117 civilians, including 28 Americans. Lemp claimed he believed Athenia was an armed merchant cruiser. The German government denied involvement. They didn't want to provoke America. But the incident established Lemp as aggressive and willing to push boundaries. By May 1941, Lemp had completed 8 war patrols and sunk 17 ships. He was professional, experienced, and very dangerous. U-110 was a Type 9B U-boat. Length, 251 feet. Displacement, 1,050 tons, surfaced. Speed, 18 knots surfaced, 7 knots submerged. Range, 8,700 nautical miles. Armament, 6 torpedo tubes, 4 bow, 2 stern, 22 torpedoes, 1 105 mm deck gun. Crew, 48 officers and men. U-110 had departed Lorient, France on April 15, 1941, assigned to patrol grid BE-60, the western approaches, where Atlantic convoys were most vulnerable. The patrol had been moderately successful. April 21st, sank SS Bangor Head, 3,900 tons. May 2nd, sank SS Ixion, 10,263 tons, a large troop transport. But by May 9th, U-110 had been at sea for 24 days. Food was running low. The crew was tired. Lemp decided to make one more attack before returning to base. May 9th, 0900. Contact. U-110's hydrophone operator detected propeller noises. Multiple ships, slow speed, zigzagging pattern. A convoy. Lemp brought U-110 to periscope depth and confirmed. 36 merchant ships with 3 escorts. Good targets. Like protection. He maneuvered U-110 ahead of the convoy and submerged to 80 feet to make an underwater approach. 11 o'clock. The attack. Lemp fired a spread of 3 torpedoes at 2 merchant ships from 1,500 yards. At this range, the torpedoes would take approximately 100 seconds to reach their targets. Lemp ordered, "Dive to 200 feet, left full rudder." Silent running. Standard procedure after firing. Get deep, turn away, go silent. Let the escorts search where you were, not where you are. 11:15. Impact. The depth charges hit before Lemp's torpedoes reached their targets. HMS Bulldog had detected U-110 on ASDIC during the torpedo attack. Baker Creswell, with his modified deep-setting charges, dropped a pattern directly over U-110's position. The explosions were catastrophic. Stern depth charge ruptured the stern torpedo room. Pressure hull cracked in 2 places. Electrical systems failed. Emergency lighting activated. Chlorine, gas began forming. Seawater plus battery acid. Depth control lost. U-110 began sinking stern first, angling down at 30 degrees. In the control room, chaos. Lights out except emergency lamps. Water spraying from ruptured pipes. The boat tilting steeper. Depth gauge showing 250 feet and increasing. Lemp assessed instantly. Structural damage, flooding, no power, going down. The U-boat was dying. He had 3 choices. 1. Try to surface and fight. Impossible. No power for compressed air systems. 2. Abandon the control room and seal the forward compartments. Save some crew but still sink. 3. Emergency blow using last-ditch high-pressure air reserves. Emergency surface. All tanks, full pressure. In an emergency surface, the crew opens massive high-pressure air valves, forcing compressed air at 3,000 psi into all ballast tanks simultaneously. It's violent, uncontrolled, and uses all reserve air. You get 1 chance. The procedure has 3 critical steps. 1. Blow all tanks. 2. Open scuttling valves to flood boat after crew evacuates. 3. Destroy Enigma and codebooks. Lemp executed step 1. 11:18. Emergency surface. U-110 rocketed toward the surface, stern heavy, completely out of control. It broke surface bow first at a steep angle, rolled to starboard, then crashed back level. Lemp was focused on getting his crew out. Abandon ship. All hands. Out, out, out. Crew members scrambled through hatches. Some grabbed life vests. Most just jumped into the freezing water. Lemp remained in the conning tower watching his men evacuate. He was supposed to open scuttling valves, destroy Enigma machine, burn codebooks. But the boat was rolling. Water was coming in. His crew was in the water, dying of hypothermia, and he believed the U-boat was sinking anyway. He could see water in the control room. Lemp made a fatal assumption. The U-boat was doomed. The scuttling was inevitable. The secrets would go down with the ship. He jumped into the water with his crew. Behind him, U-110 floated, badly damaged, flooding slowly, but not sinking. Not yet. Sub-Lieutenant David Baum. David Baum was 20 years old, a sub-lieutenant, the lowest commissioned officer rank, who had joined the Royal Navy at age 18. He had never commanded a combat action. He had never seen inside an enemy vessel. He had received exactly 0 training in submarine operations or intelligence gathering. But he was the most junior officer on HMS Bulldog, which made him expendable for a suicide mission. "Mr. Baum, you're taking a boarding party to U-110. 8 men. Telegraphist Wild will go with you. He might recognize communications equipment. Take small arms. Be quick. That boat could sink at any moment." Baum selected his crew. Able seaman Claude Austin, coxswain. Telegraphist Alan Long Wild. 6 more ratings, sailors. None had boarding experience. None spoke German. None had any idea what they were looking for. 12:30, the approach. Bulldog launched a whaler, small boat, with Baum's boarding party. The whaler approached U-110 cautiously. German submarines sometimes carried booby traps, and there was always the risk of scuttling charges detonating. As they approached, Baum could see conning tower hatch open, deck hatches open, no movement on deck. Slight list to starboard. Water lapping at the deck, but not flooding over it. The U-boat looked abandoned, but stable. Alongside, I'm going aboard first. Wait for my signal. 12:35. First man aboard. Baum climbed from the whaler onto U-110's deck. The submarine rolled slightly under his weight. Water sloshed across the deck. The metal was slippery with seawater and oil. He approached the conning tower hatch carefully, expecting booby traps or armed Germans below. He pulled out his service revolver and called down, "Anyone below?" Silence. He climbed down the ladder into the conning tower. Inside U-110, the interior was lit by emergency lamps, eerie red lighting. Water sloshed in the lower levels. The submarine creaked and groaned. It smelled of diesel fuel, unwashed men, and seawater. It was terrifying. The submarine could sink at any second, trapping him inside. But it was also empty. The crew had evacuated completely. Baum called up to the whaler, "Send down the men, she's abandoned." Baum had no training, no intelligence briefing, no idea what was valuable. His orders were, "Find anything that looks important." He split his team. 2 men to search for scuttling charges and close any open valves, prevent sinking. 2 men to search the control room. 2 men to search cabins and storage. Telegraphist Wild to search the radio room. Baum to search the captain's cabin. 12:40. The captain's cabin. Baum found Lemp's cabin, a tiny space barely 6 feet by 4 feet, with a fold-down bunk and a small desk. On the desk and shelves, navigation charts with U-boat patrol routes marked. A logbook, Kriegstagebuch, war diary. Weather reports, signal logs, and a locked drawer. Baum smashed the lock with a wrench. Inside, he didn't know what they were. The titles were in German, but they looked official. They were dated May 1941, and they had complex tables of letters and numbers. He started grabbing everything. "Wild, get up here, bring a bag." 12:45, the radio room. Telegraphist Wild was searching the radio room, a claustrophobic space filled with equipment he half recognized and half didn't. German naval radios, direction-finding equipment, and there, on a small desk covered with a canvas cloth, Wild pulled off the cloth. Wild had never seen one before, but he'd been briefed that it existed. A German code machine. Looked like a typewriter, extremely valuable. This had to be it. 3 wooden rotors with alphabets around the rim. A keyboard. A lamp board showing letters. A plug board at the front with cables connecting letter pairs. "Mr. Baum, I've found something." 12:50, the prize. Baum stared at the machine. He had no idea what it was, but it was clearly sophisticated, clearly important, and clearly related to communications. "Carefully, get it out. Don't drop it. Get it to the whaler." Wild and Austin carefully disconnected the Enigma machine from its mountings and carried it up to the deck. Baum continued searching. Over the next 20 minutes, Baum's team removed, from the captain's cabin, Kriegstagebuch, war diary, complete record of the patrol. Kurzsignale, short signal, codebook, used to compress operational messages. Navigation charts with marked patrol routes and known minefields. Standing orders from BDU, Befehlshaber der U-Boote, U-Boat Command. From the radio room, Enigma M3 machine, serial number 1658. Current month's rotor settings, Schlüsselverfahren M. Daily key settings for May 1941. Bigram tables, used for encoding Enigma indicator settings. Weather codebooks. Convoy reporting ciphers. From the control room, additional signal logs, merchant shipping codes, recognition signals. They didn't know what half of it was. They just grabbed everything that looked official or had numbers and letters in columns. 1300, the race. As they worked, the U-boat was settling lower. Water was rising in the lower compartments. The list to starboard was increasing. "Get everything up! Now! She's going down!" The crew formed a human chain, passing documents up through the conning tower hatch to the whaler. Baker Cresswell on Bulldog was watching through binoculars. "Hurry, Mr. Baum, she's sinking." 13:15. Last items. Baum made one final sweep of the captain's cabin. In a bin under the desk he found personal letters from Lemp's girlfriend, photographs, and more code books, wrapped in waterproof oilcloth. He grabbed them all. "Everyone out! Now! She's going!" 13:20. Evacuation. The boarding party climbed out through the conning tower hatch, down to the deck, and into the whaler. The last man off was Baum. As the whaler pulled away, U-110 settled deeper, water now pouring into the open hatches. They had been aboard for 45 minutes. It felt like hours. Here was the critical moment. If the Germans saw British sailors carrying documents off their submarine, they would know their codes were compromised. Enigma would be changed immediately. Baker Cresswell ordered, "Bring the whaler alongside Bulldog on the starboard side, out of sight from the Germans in the water. Transfer all materials below deck immediately. No one sees this." The whaler came alongside Bulldog's starboard side, the side facing away from the German survivors. The Enigma machine and documents were quickly transferred below deck. Then Baker Cresswell ordered, "Prepare to take U-110 in tow. We're bringing her back to Iceland." For the next 8 hours, HMS Bulldog attempted to tow U-110 to Iceland, 300 miles away. If they could get it to port, technical experts could examine it completely. But U-110 was flooding slowly. The tow line kept breaking in the rough seas. The submarine was settling lower and lower. 2000, the decision. Baker Cresswell realized U-110 wouldn't make it to Iceland. The submarine was going to sink. But that was actually perfect for the deception. If U-110 sank, the Germans would believe all its secrets went down with it. "Cast off the tow. Let her go." 2100. U-110 sinks. The submarine settled stern first, bow rising at a steep angle, then slipped beneath the waves. It sank in approximately 3,000 meters of water, too deep for any recovery. From the German survivors' perspective, their U-boat had sunk just as it was supposed to. Their secrets were safe on the bottom of the Atlantic. HMS Bulldog and Broadway had picked up 32 survivors from U-110's crew of 48. 15 died in the depth charge attack. 1, Julius Lemp, drowned after abandoning ship. The survivors were immediately separated and confined below deck. They were not allowed to see the upper decks or witness any of Bulldog's activities. Critical. None of the German prisoners saw the boarding party. None saw documents being removed. None saw the Enigma machine. As far as they knew, U-110 had sunk with all its secrets. When the prisoners arrived in Britain, they were interrogated separately by intelligence officers. Interrogator: "Did you destroy your code books before abandoning ship?" Prisoner: "The boat was sinking. We had to evacuate immediately." Interrogator: "But did you destroy the Enigma machine?" Prisoner: "The boat went down. Everything went down with it." The prisoners genuinely believed this. They had seen U-110 sink. They assumed Lemp had followed protocol before abandoning. They had no reason to think otherwise. German naval intelligence questioned the prisoners through Red Cross channels, allowed under Geneva Convention. German intelligence: confirm, U-110 sank with all equipment aboard. Prisoner: "Yes, we evacuated. She sank immediately after." The German High Command accepted this. U-110 was listed as sunk with all hands. They didn't know about survivors initially. Enigma security was considered intact. The Admiralty went to extraordinary lengths to maintain the fiction. 1. Immediate classification. All boarding party members were sworn to secrecy under Official Secrets Act. Penalty for disclosure. Execution for treason. 2. False victory credits. The sinking of U-110 was credited to the depth charge attack, not to capture. Baker Cresswell received a Distinguished Service Order for sinking U-110. 3. Prisoner separation. The 32 survivors were kept in separate POW camps and never allowed to communicate with other German prisoners who might ask detailed questions. 4. False intelligence. British intelligence fed fake information through double agents suggesting U-boat losses. May 10, 1941. Bletchley Park. The Enigma machine and codebooks from U-110 arrived at Bletchley Park on May 10th, transported by armed courier in a locked case. Alan Turing and the cryptanalysis team immediately recognized the value. This is extraordinary. Current month's key settings, bigram tables for encoding indicator settings, short signal codebooks, weather ciphers. This is everything. With the captured materials, Bletchley Park could 1. Read current messages immediately. The May 1941 key settings allowed them to configure the bombs correctly and decrypt current German naval messages within hours instead of days or weeks. 2. Understand the key setting procedure. The captured documents explained how U-boats set up their Enigma machines each day. This was critical. Even with a captured machine, you need to know the procedure. 3. Build a pattern library. The codebooks included cribs, common phrases and formats used in German naval communications. This allowed the bombs to work more efficiently on future messages, even without current key settings. 4. Exploit operational weaknesses. The short signal codebook revealed how U-boats compressed operational messages. This had a critical weakness. Certain phrases appeared in almost every message, providing cribs for code breaking. May 1941. Within days of receiving the U-110 materials, Bletchley Park was reading German U-boat traffic in near real time. Convoy routing. The Admiralty could now read U-boat position reports, see Wolfpack formation orders before they were executed, reroute convoys away from known U-boat positions, direct escorts to attack U-boats whose positions were revealed by their own radio traffic. The impact was immediate and dramatic. May 1941, before U-110, 58 ships sunk, 325,000 tons. June 1941, after U-110, 61 ships sunk, but July 1941, 22 ships sunk, 94,000 tons, 71% reduction. August 1941, 23 ships sunk, 80,000 tons. The sinking rate collapsed. U-boats were suddenly finding empty ocean where convoys should have been. German U-Boat Command, BDU, under Admiral Karl Donitz was confused. Why are our patrol lines finding nothing? Why do convoys change course just before reaching our positions? Why are our supply submarines being intercepted? Donitz considered several possibilities. Improved British ASDIC, sonar, long-range aircraft with better radar, spies in French ports reporting U-boat departures, better Allied convoy routing based on direction finding. He never seriously considered that Enigma was compromised. The mathematics said it was impossible. The prisoners from U-110 confirmed the boat had sunk with all codes aboard. June 1941, security review. Donitz did order a security review of Enigma procedures. German cryptologists examined the system and concluded, Enigma M3 remains cryptographically secure. The mathematical complexity of 158 quintillion possible settings makes systematic decryption impossible, even with captured machines. Current key setting procedures are adequate. The review missed the critical point. Britain didn't need to break the mathematics. They had the actual key settings from captured codebooks. The U-110 capture had effects lasting far beyond May 1941. 1. Continuous code breaking. Even when the Germans changed codebooks, the understanding of procedures and common phrases from U-110 allowed Bletchley Park to continue breaking codes with the bombs. 2. Other captures. The success of U-110 led to more targeted operations to capture code materials. U-559 captured October 1942. Crew died sealing documents in waterproof bags before the U-boat sank. British boarding party recovered them. German weather ships captured with Enigma and code books. German supply vessels intercepted. 3. The turning point. Historians debate when the Battle of the Atlantic turned, but May 1941 is a critical date. After U-110, Allied shipping losses declined steadily while U-boat losses increased. Statistical reality. From May 1941 to May 1943, end of the main Battle of the Atlantic, Allied shipping losses decreased by 75%. U-boat losses increased by 400%. Convoy routing success rate went from 40% to 95%. Not all of this was due to Enigma. Improved convoy tactics, long-range aircraft, better radar, more escorts all contributed. But Enigma intelligence was the force multiplier that made everything else work. Estimates suggest the breaking of naval Enigma, enabled primarily by U-110, saved 500 to 700 ships from sinking, 30,000 to 50,000 merchant sailors and naval personnel, millions of tons of food, fuel, and munitions. It shortened the war in Europe by an estimated 1 to 2 years. Kapitänleutnant Fritz Julius Lemp did not survive the sinking of U-110. He drowned in the North Atlantic on May 9, 1941, age 27. The exact circumstances are unclear. Some reports say he drowned helping crew members into the water. Others suggest he realized he'd failed to scuttle U-110 and couldn't face capture and interrogation. His body was never recovered. What is certain? Lemp died believing his U-boat was sinking and its secrets were safe. He never knew he had failed. In 1996, when British documents about U-110 were finally declassified, historians examined what went wrong from Lemp's perspective. The failures. 1. Assumption of sinking. Lemp saw water in the control room and assumed catastrophic flooding. The flooding was actually manageable. The submarine could have stayed afloat for hours. 2. Panic priority. Lemp prioritized evacuating crew over securing secrets. Understandable. He was watching his men die, but fatal for security. 3. No verification. Lemp didn't verify that scuttling charges were activated or that Enigma was destroyed. He assumed someone else had done it. 4. No second check. German procedure called for the chief engineer to verify scuttling independently of the captain. In the chaos, this didn't happen. Lemp was a competent, experienced officer who made reasonable decisions under extreme pressure. His crew survived because he prioritized their evacuation. But those same decisions cost Germany the Battle of the Atlantic. Sub-Lieutenant David Balm survived the war, eventually retiring from the Royal Navy as a lieutenant commander in 1970. He lived until 2016, dying at age 95. For 55 years, he couldn't tell anyone what he'd done. The Official Secrets Act bound him to silence until 1996, when the story was finally declassified. I was 20 years old. I had no idea what I was looking for. We just grabbed everything that looked important and hoped we got the right stuff. It wasn't heroic, it was terrifying. That submarine could have sunk at any moment. In 2015, at age 94, Balm gave an interview. People ask if I was scared. Of course I was scared. But you do what needs to be done. We got lucky. U-110 stayed afloat just long enough. If she'd sunk 10 minutes earlier, we'd have nothing. Thousands more people would have died. Balm was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross in 1941. The citation said, "For gallantry in action against enemy submarines." The real reason couldn't be disclosed. Alan Turing and the Bletchley Park codebreakers continued breaking Enigma throughout the war. The knowledge and techniques developed from the U-110 materials were fundamental to this success. Turing's work shortened the war significantly and saved countless lives. Tragically, he was prosecuted for homosexuality in 1952, chemically castrated, and died, likely by suicide, in 1954 at age 41. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted Turing a posthumous pardon. In 2019, Turing was selected to appear on the Bank of England £50 note with the inscription, "This is only a foretaste of what is to come, and only the shadow of what is going to be." Commander Joe Baker Creswell was promoted to captain and commanded other vessels through the war. He survived and retired as a rear admiral in 1951. His decision to board U-110 instead of sinking it immediately was controversial at the time. He violated protocol and risked his crew for uncertain gain, but his judgment was vindicated. His decision to capture rather than destroy may have saved more lives than any other single tactical decision by any British commander in World War II. The wreck of U-110 lies in approximately 3,000 meters of water, 300 miles west of Ireland. It has never been located or surveyed. At that depth, the pressure hull has almost certainly collapsed. Somewhere in that wreck, in what remains of the captain's cabin, might still be Lemp's personal effects. Letters from his girlfriend, photographs, mementos of the life he lost at age 27. Germany never learned that U-110's codes were captured. Even after the war, when the full extent of Allied code-breaking was revealed, German naval officers refused to believe Enigma had been broken. Impossible. The mathematics were unbreakable. They must have had a spy in our headquarters. It wasn't until the 1970s, when more documents were declassified, that German veterans accepted the truth. Their unbreakable system had been compromised by a combination of brilliant mathematics, captured materials, and one U-boat that didn't sink when it should have. May 9th, 1941, 13:20, North Atlantic. A 20-year-old sub-lieutenant climbs out of a sinking German submarine, carrying a wooden box containing a machine he doesn't recognize. He has no idea he's holding the key to winning the Battle of the Atlantic. Behind him, the submarine settles lower in the water, its captain dead, its crew prisoners, its secrets stolen. It was supposed to sink with its codes intact. It was supposed to be impossible to break into. The mathematics said so. The Germans believed it absolutely. But mathematics didn't account for human error, for a commander who prioritized his crew over security protocols, for a submarine that refused to sink quickly, for a young officer willing to risk drowning in a steel coffin for secrets he couldn't even identify. The greatest heist of World War II happened because of a series of improbable events. Depth charges that damaged but didn't sink. A commander who chose evacuation over verification. A submarine that floated when it should have sunk. A captain who ordered boarding instead of destruction. A boarding party that grabbed everything without knowing what mattered. If any one of those factors had been different, U-110 would have sunk with its secrets. The Battle of the Atlantic would have lasted years longer. Hundreds of thousands more would have died. Technology is only as secure as the humans who protect it. Enigma's mathematics were sound. 158 quintillion possible combinations truly were unbreakable by brute force. But the system depended on codebooks being destroyed before capture, submarines sinking when scuttled, commanders verifying security procedures, crew members executing protocols perfectly under stress. In the chaos of combat, with men drowning and a submarine flooding, Julius Lemp made human decisions. He saved his crew. He assumed the submarine was doomed. He trusted that someone had followed procedure. Those very human choices broke the unbreakable system. Today's encryption systems, AES-256, RSA-2048, quantum-resistant algorithms, are mathematically secure in the same way Enigma was. The mathematics are sound, but systems are still vulnerable to captured keys and passwords, humans who click phishing links, procedures not followed under stress, assumptions that security measures were implemented, social engineering that bypasses mathematics entirely. The U-110 story reminds us, The strongest lock in the world doesn't matter if someone forgets to close the door. There is no memorial to U-110. The submarine lies unmarked in 3,000 meters of water. Julius Lemp has no known grave. But every time you use secure communications, every time encryption protects your data, you're using the legacy of what happened on May 9th, 1941. The codebreakers at Bletchley Park, building on the materials from U-110, created the foundation of modern computer science. The bombs evolved into early computers. The lessons in cryptanalysis became the foundation of cybersecurity. The submarine that didn't sink became the submarine that changed everything.